Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Mortgage Process. I, of course, am your host, Greg Wareham, and thank you for joining us today. Have you ever thought about commercial real estate? I mean, we talk about residential real estate all the time, but we haven't had any real conversations about commercial real estate. And if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of a big mystery, right? You know that it's out there, but you don't know how to buy it, how to sell it, how to look for it, how it works. You know, terms like triple net and different things, you just completely, people could be completely ignorant to it because you're not familiar with it, you know, myself included. So to kind of solve that dilemma today, we brought on an expert in commercial real estate, Mr. Joe Spinella. Joe, thanks for joining us.
What's going on, everybody? How we doing? Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you, Joe. Thanks for taking the time today.
Absolutely.
So, Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Joe Spinella. I am Director of Commercial with KW in the Monmouth Ocean location. I also am a co-owner of Ace Acquisitions. It's a real estate investment acquisitions firm. We do business. We started in New Jersey. Now we're doing business nationwide. And we also have a subsection that we started in Texas.
That's great, Joe.
Yeah.
So now the acquisition company, Ace Acquisitions, what does that do?
So what that does is, my partner and I, we took a step back and we said, okay, our goal is to invest in commercial real estate, anything investment-wise, multifamily, anything that's generating income, really is a whole scope as to what we focus on. And from there, we end up going and, we're contacting owners directly, seeing if they're interested in selling their property. And, if it's a great deal, it's something that we're going to purchase ourselves.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How's it going so far?
It's going amazing. We actually have 118 units under contract that we're purchasing.
Good for you, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, about 40% under market value.
Wow. Congratulations, Joe.
Yeah.
That's really great.
So to me, when I first got into real estate to begin with, the goal was, all right, I want to invest in real estate. I don't want to be a transactional broker. If I don't show up to work tomorrow, I'm not going to be receiving any money. That's the whole thing about being a broker, being an agent, that I didn't want anything to do with, right? I wanted something that's going to be long lasting, passive, and, something that's going to add more value than just a transactional piece.
Sure.
So, if I'm going to go and invest in real estate, which I originally started when I got my license,
yeah.
How am I going to find these deals? Am I going to just wait for people to send them to me? Am I just going to hope someone sends me a good deal?
Right.
What kind of value can I provide for them to send me a good deal? And when you're on the other side of it, being the person that's sending the deals, it's a real eye-opener that I have a list of 1,000 people that want deals.
Mm-hmm.
That call me every day. Hey, send me a deal. Send me a 7 cap, an 8 cap, a 9 cap. Send me something. Well, why would I send them a unicorn deal if I can just do it myself?
Yeah. That's really amazing, Joe.
Or send them, what kind of value does someone have to offer for me to send them the blue plate special deals?
Sure. That's really incredible. I remember when you came into the industry originally, what you've been able to accomplish, really, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I have a question for you along that. So the company acquires 118 units. From a qualification standpoint, how does that work? Because it's not like a residential mortgage.
Yeah. So now with everything being, crazy with the interest rates and, a lot of the banks, they're making you put not just 25% down, they're looking for more. And especially if a property isn't, generating the income that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Say if it's, 20% vacant or, not up to market rents or whatever it's supposed to be, they're not going to give you a loan based on, what the current going in numbers are.
Sure.
So what we've been utilizing is a lot of owner financing.
Okay.
And the thing is, the added benefit for both parties is that if an owner goes and sells a property, say for $5 million, they have to go and either pay tax on that right at the sale,
right,
or they have to 1031 that into something else. And finding a good deal where they're making the same, if not more, on that money finds a challenge.
Yeah, you see, and that's a great point for everyone that's listening out there, is because if you have that seller financing, well, I don't have to worry about the capital gains, the 1031, they can just be collecting their money from you on a monthly basis, whoever that buyer is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you got to know how to speak that language.
You have to know. And I've only been in real estate for 4 years, but it could, I'm working 80 to 100 hours a week, where, if you break that down to actual terms, maybe I've been in for 8 years or
right.
so. So
Right. That's great. Now, when you look at bank financing that you would get, now the banks don't qualify in commercial lending like they do residential. So residential, you're gonna pull the credit, you're gonna look at income, assets, and that's really what you're qualifying on. It's different in the commercial space.
it is different, yes, and it's they first off look at the property and they see what the income is, right? So if it's generating income, because that income is really what's going to be paying the loan. It's not going to be you, right? So say if you're looking to purchase a home that you're going to live in, the income to pay the mortgage is the income that you're producing.
Sure.
Personally. If you're buying an income producing property, that income is what's essentially going to be paying the mortgage. You're not paying it out of your pocket. You're paying it from the property if it's a good property to invest in. So they look at that. So that's why if it's undervalued or vacant, that's going to be an issue because that's going to, mess around with the numbers.
Sure.
But then, once that's done, so say if you're doing something that's a value add, where you need capital to increase the value of the property, then they're going to go look at your track record. What have you done? Are you qualified to be able to accomplish this property and do this project the right way? And it goes from there.
That's it. That's interesting. So when you look at the revenue that's coming in from a property, let's just operate in the presumption it's rented and it's not vacant. So you got revenue coming in. Does the bank look at that revenue number and take a percentage of it to figure out what you'd be able to afford from a payment standpoint on the loan?
So specifically, right, so say, let's just use easy numbers, right, on $1 million property, let's just say it's supposed to be 25% down, so 250 grand on $1 million property. Is that property going to appraise at $1 million, right? So you have to look at it as a bank's perspective, right? If they default on their loan, what are we left with?
Right.
Is that going to be a win, a wash, or a loss for us? So they'll accept it as long as it's not going to be a loss,
right?
Essentially.
Okay, so they'll look at something that even potentially breaks even, as long as the overall investment and their perception of it is good, and the appraisal is good, and everything like that.
Yeah, as long as the numbers make sense, they can probably get it done. Now, I'm no loan mortgage broker or commercial finance guru, but yes, that's essentially how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great alternative for people looking to get into an investment market right now.
Yeah.
Because from the residential standpoint, as you see interest rates rising and you're looking at the inventory being really low, trying to get investment properties today have become a little bit more challenging than they have been in years past. Now, how do you see the market in the commercial space right now?
So it's interesting because there's different waves. There's different waves that you go into and you see, right? So when COVID hit, the biggest wave, there was an increase in demand in warehouse.
Okay.
A tremendous increase in demand, about 100, 200% as far as price per square foots that have increased and, overall rental agreements and values of property, right? So there was a property that I found, just using as an example. I'm a visual guy. I like to, associate things with actuals. A gentleman bought a warehouse for $7.5 million, and he turned down an offer from us for $22.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, in about 13 years.
Wow. That's pretty good appreciation.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And he had a 20-year lease in there with the tenant that was, making, close to 6% on their money. So
I get a question for you on the warehouses. Does it matter what the warehouse is being used for? Like, you have to disclose that to the bank if you're doing financing. What are you housing in there?
In that sense, he had a blanket mortgage on a few different properties. So I think he had a 3% interest rate, which is kind of ridiculous. But when you have such appreciation in that value, you essentially, you just start borrowing against the property at, ridiculous rates.
Yeah.
And then, obviously that's tax free. And, once you get into that ballpark of income and, income streams, that's when, you're really perfecting and beating the game.
Yeah, no question. Hey, so you had mentioned, I just want to define something to the listeners out there. You had mentioned really quickly 7% cap, 8% cap. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so your cap rate is going to be your gross total, whatever that is, whether it's going to be your gross total income from, if it's a multifamily, it's all your tenants' rents. If it's going to be a warehouse, it's going to be your tenant that's paying the lease, whether it be one tenant or multiple tenants. It's an office space, it's all your office space tenants paying the lease, right? So it's their total income over a 12-month span. That's going to be your gross total. Now, you add in your expenses, whatever the landlord is paying for. You're going to add all those expenses up, which are, water and sewer, insurance, tax, any type of maintenance, anything that they have to pay for expenses for the year goes into that.
Okay.
So your expenses are going to range from about, say, 25% to as high as 40 on certain properties. And then you subtract that number from your gross total, and that gives you your NOI, which is your net operating income.
Okay. All right. So you're looking at what's that total income to include the expenses that the tenant is paying?
Yes.
And then you're just deducting out what your hard expenses are, your hard costs on it per month.
Yeah. So it's going to be your tenants are usually, say if it's a multifamily specifically, your tenants usually just pay for your electric, the water, if the water and sewer usually is not separately metered, you can use a RUB system to be able to implement that.
Mm-hmm. What's that, Joe?
A RUB system is for example, you have one unit, I have one unit. You're going in, the water bill is getting separated per those units.
Right.
So instead of the landlord paying, it's just another way to increase your NOI.
Got it. You just have separate meters put in there for water.
Yeah, it comes in, it just breaks it up.
Got
right?
it.
So say if it's $1,000 and there's 10 units, it splits it up 100 each.
Yeah.
It's just literally a way to go. So I can go into, a part of my business models, I'll go into a property, I'll underwrite the deal completely, break down what the expenses are and say, wow, okay, we're at a 38% expense ratio. It's not really a deal at this point, but if we bring those expenses down to 30%, it becomes a good deal.
Mm.
So how can we go around and figure that out to make it work?
Man, there's such a science to it, and not missing the little pieces. Something as simple as water, right? You don't know how much that's going to be, and you don't want that as a pass through to you as the owner.
Yeah. So like I said, mainly the tenants are responsible for their specific expenses, but that doesn't that's not included in the total income, right? So now we subtract the expenses from the gross total, whatever that number is different, right?
Yep.
So say it's 100,000 is the gross total. We pull out 30,000 for expenses. 70,000 is our NOI.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's 70,000. Say we're looking to sell the property at 700 grand.
Yeah.
At that point, it's a 10 cap, which is
Got it.
unheard of for most deals. That's a very good deal.
What is it like an average for a cap rate that you're looking for?
So now, I would say about, what now you're looking at is a 5.6 is what it's at. But really, for it to make sense with the interest rates being higher, it really needs to be closer to a 6, 7, 8 for the numbers to line up and be the same returns as what it used to be. A 7 cap is great. If anyone sees a 7 cap, they're jumping all over it. But unfortunately, now the owners that are selling their properties, the value that they're looking to sell it for is significantly higher than even what it's worth.
Now, and just again, to clarify with everyone, you look at that cap rate, let's use a 7 cap as an example. So if that unit's making $70,000 per year, then it's probably worth $700,000.
No, that's a 10,
that's a 10
cap.
cap. Right.
A 7 cap on 70 grand is $1 million.
Got it.
So right now that property, if I was underwriting that deal right now, I would say about $1.2 million is where they're what they're going to be shooting for, $1.25 million, something like that.
All right, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it is a science. So how did you learn the industry so well?
So honestly, I taught myself everything.
Yeah.
I was looking for mentors. I reached out to a bunch of people that were very successful in the business, and it just didn't work. They didn't have the same type of goals or aspirations or real work ethic what I was looking to put into it, and it just didn't line up with what my visions and values were. And I have big goals and big aspirations. So if you're going to sell something, might as well try to sell the most expensive thing you get your hands on.
Right. Yeah, it's great point. So what do you attribute your discipline to? I'm laying this one in for you, Joe.
So I started competing in bodybuilding about 10 years ago, and that's definitely a big part of it.
It's if everyone out there hasn't seen Joe, I mean, if you go online, you can see him. He's a competitive bodybuilder, and we all know the amount of discipline that goes into that.
I attribute a lot of my success and discipline and consistency to that. Right. So you have to make sure you're getting up every morning, hitting your cardio, getting your meals in. Really staying disciplined to yourself and holding yourself 100% accountable.
Right.
I'm very big on accountability, and I think a lot of people lack that. And I think that, when you start taking accountability for all your actions and everything that you're doing in your life, you start to really say, wow, okay, I can make a change today.
So, and you come from a long line of bodybuilders, right? Your mom was a bodybuilder?
Yeah, my mom competed, and also my dad did as well.
Wow.
So that was
Okay.
their thing growing up in Brooklyn. Yep.
All right. So listen, guys, so if you want to be successful in commercial real estate, you got to get up in the morning, you got to do squats, you got to get cardio, and you could do a great job. And I'm sure Joe would be happy to help anyone if they needed help trying to
Exactly.
understand it in more detail.
Yeah.
You give a really great presentation. I was in a meeting with you once in a presentation that you did for commercial real estate. It's really great. Do you give seminars?
I do. Yeah, I do speaking. I think it's very important. I'm a big advocate is getting the word out there that, you're in control of your life, right? There's, set the bar as high as possible and, find out what your passion is and go after it, tackle that and, tackle it at full speed. And, I'm a big believer in some quote that I live by is, you can never fail if you never quit.
Yeah, that's true. Those are words to live by, right? And there's so many different examples about that. You can't fail if you don't quit.
No, you give it your all and, you shoot for the stars and you keep going. And again, you're going to have to take a step back and, recalibrate and understand what's working, what doesn't work. But again, if you keep accountability for your life and you're giving it really your best effort, you will have success or find yourself, find out some things about yourself that, maybe you didn't know prior to.
We were chatting a little bit before this. We're talking about social media. And we're talking about, kind of a me generational type of thing. And you get a lot of people posting different social media pieces. Really, and some of it's intention for attention, some of it's for education. But I think at times where people get a little bit lost is you really understand yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And you understand yourself well enough to be able to leverage your goals and put together a disciplined plan for you to try to achieve them.
Yeah.
And it all starts with yourself, right? You really understand yourself. Nick, do you understand yourself?
It's actually really funny because the same things apply to everything, including social media, marketing, advertising. It's people that are laying out tools and what you choose. Like maybe someone does want to go play a video game for a little bit, but what's the discipline behind that? Hey, I can give myself, this 20 minutes to, have fun and do this thing because I'm taking a break from something. But then when I go back to it, am I utilizing anything else? Like Nick, on a personal level, my social media stuff is pretty low.
Yeah, it's terrible. I've said it.
I don't do that. I don't do that much personally. However, I'm working with more than a dozen small businesses and managing their stuff daily. So it's more like, hey, where is that? Am I getting lost in reels and TikToks? And next thing you know, you're sitting on the couch for an hour and it's just gone wasted. And so same thing, I'm bringing back to what he said. And, you have to have those tools and have to align with what you want and your needs and, your aspirations.
Exactly.
And you have to take the time too. I was having a conversation last night about 7:00 with a very good friend of mine. You know him, Joe. And we're talking about, the intensity of the market, right? So when you look at the mortgage space right now in real estate, like it's really intense right now. There's a lot of changes in the marketplace. Interest rates are going up, where supply demand hasn't hit an equilibrium yet. And as we all know, the Federal Reserve is trying to make that happen. And you can almost get too laser focused into it. You got to make sure you're taking the time to do something else, right? You got to have balance with what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, for you, and we both share, working out is something to release some stress. I mean, you, of course, are taking it to another level, but you need that. And you need something else, right? You need things that aren't so isolating as well, right?
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, I'm also a big part of, I've made a big change in my lifestyle and my business in the last year. And the biggest thing was scheduling and writing out to-do lists with top priorities. Yeah. So I have a list that I go through every single day. It has a top priorities, one big with gratitude as well. So one thing I'm grateful for, top 4 priority list, and what else has to be accomplished for the day. And you do get your top priority. Let me rephrase that. So your top 4 priorities is things that have to get done each day. Mm-hmm. And if you do those top 4 things, you'll be able to slowly trend in the direction that you want. Right?
So give everybody an example. You got a top 4 list, and you had mentioned gratitude in there as well. Give me an example of some things that might be in the top 4 for a given day.
So, main follow-up for the day. Any specific deals that I'm working on that has to get done. Anything that needs to get done for the deal to go through. to go forward, move forward, whether it be having a call with an attorney, whether it be getting a contract reviewed, whether that be speaking with a client, whatever that is, that has to get done for the day. That goes in my top priority list to make sure that doesn't fall through the cracks. And listen, sometimes it's hard conversations. Sometimes it's not something that's exciting, fun, but you have to do what you have to do.
Right.
And, I'm very big with scheduling. I'm very tight with my schedule. Every day I'm at the office at 8:30. I'm at the office from 8:30 till about 5:30. Go to the gym for 2 hours, come back to the office from like 8 to 11:30 every single day. How
do you eliminate distractions into that schedule?
When you're, focused on your goal and what you want, to me, that's my main motivation. And that's, nothing really can distract me from that. So
what's your goal?
My goal is to have tremendous success in my business and, compete nationally, which that's it next year. So,
all right. What weight class are you in?
So I was a lightweight. Now I'm moving up to middleweight.
We're putting on muscle mass. Let's go, muscle, baby.
Yeah.
Good thing I put protein shake in your drink
exactly.
today.
I know. I can't wait to sip on this.
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a couple minutes again. Greg Wareham, Joe Spinella. We'll be right back at you. Welcome back, everybody. Greg Wareham, Joe Spinella here. So just to go a little bit deeper on self-development and production. Again, I know that you're really big on those things. Your whole lifestyle revolves around that, Joe. Give us a little more detail as to your thoughts on those areas.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think it's very important, and going along with the to-do list that I do every day, I think it's very important to figure out the main couple topics of what's income generating, right? What's important to you that you have to get those things done every day that will help you accomplish what you're looking to do. Mm-hmm. So I speak with a lot of realtors and my whole team. Actually, I do one-on-one calls every morning with them. Specifically, each person gets a different day. And we have a 15-minute call and just go over, hey, what have you been doing? What do you think you can do better? And then I'll give you my, completely unbiased approach onto how I think, constructive criticism, what you can be doing better.
Right.
And, it's a super, super helpful tool and trick that I use, and it's been very successful recently. The way you word things in the conversation you're having.
Yeah.
Right. So if a real estate agent comes to me, hey, I'm down in business, whatever, maybe, okay, so write out what you're doing for the day and break that down. And when people break down what their day actually is, they're very, it's a hard conversation to have, right?
People don't do anything. And that's not a bad thing. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And if you don't, when we were listening to Adele talk, right, she's mentioned that, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time.
It's true.
And I think that's the truest statement. That's why I'm so hard on checklist and to-do list, is because you need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, if you get in the car and you have no idea where you're going, you don't put it in the navigation, how are you going to get there? You might get there.
Yeah.
It's going to take you a little bit longer. It's not going to be a direct route as if you have a plan. And I'm very big on that. And, again, another conversation I've had with my team that's been super, super helpful is, plan your perfect day. Sit down and plan your perfect day. And what does that perfect day consist of? And I didn't realize it being such a open, interesting conversation till after I did it, right? Because my perfect day is, something that I really live out every day, just for me being mindful, right? I cut out all distractions, and that's what I'm shooting for every day.
Right.
But a lot of people, they have distractions and they have things that really don't allow them to have that perfect day, right? What is your perfect day waking up as? Having breakfast. What is that? And if you write it down, and then say you write it down, the next week, shoot for having that perfect day. You end up doing that, I guarantee you, when you put your head on the pillow at night, you're going to be happy.
Yeah, we've all had that feeling. I think that's a great way to frame it, Joe. What's that perfect day look like? Because that sense of satisfaction when you put your head on the pillow, everyone's had it before.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that was just, I did all this stuff, and you sleep like a champ. You wake up the next morning.
And you're just going to want to tackle it and do it the same thing over again.
Want to do it again. Yeah, that's great. That's great advice.
These are things that I realized for myself that, wow, okay, so if I, do X, Y, and Z daily, I will be, happy, and I will trend towards, what my goal is and what I'm trying to achieve.
Really feeds into, is your day controlling you or you controlling your day. My earlier comment about people don't do anything, I didn't mean that necessarily as a negative. It's just you don't know, right? Because the day is going to start and it's going to finish. The question at the end of it all, to your point, Joe, was it your perfect day? Do you even know what your perfect day is? Did you have a plan going into it? What's the to-do list? What are all these things that you're trying to accomplish? Human beings by nature want to have a sense of satisfaction.
Yep.
Right? You want to feel good about yourself. You want others to feel good about you as well, right? Yep. And you can only get there if you think about it.
Yeah, and
then implement it.
Exactly, and you need to know what it is.
It's funny. I was on the phone with my coach yesterday, and I told you guys earlier a story. I was talking to a good friend of mine about, hey, we got to do some other things. And my coach always reminds me of, you're going to do your best work when you're in a creative space, right? Do you understand? Again, what's your perfect day look like? In my world, it's being creative. I can be creative every day. I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to say, this was fantastic. Now we can drill down on that in a little bit more detail, but the bigger picture is to just get you out of the monotonous space, right? Because we all fall into it.
Yeah.
It's how much mental discipline do we have to recognize it and pull yourself out of it.
Yeah. Mental discipline is huge. And that is also taking accountability. Right? For you to be able to take accountability and not blame something on somebody else or on something else. It's being able to step up. Okay, I could have done this differently. All right. When you take a step back, like I said, and just look at the picture and say, okay, well, if I would have done this differently, this action would have been differently, and when you really look at it and say, all right, going forward, I'm going to be doing this better. I'm going to put more time, more effort, or look at this, in a different light.
Yeah. And you really got to have, that's a discipline thing as well. I do that. I know you do that, where you're really reflecting, but I'll reflect even down to the detail of a conversation that I had with someone to say, I didn't like that. I didn't like the way I inflicted my voice on that, or I didn't like exactly the words that I used to grow. John Maxwell is actually a really big person on that. I've heard him speak on multiple occasions, where if you're not reviewing what you did, well, how do you know what you're going to do? Right? You got to have a good handle as to what you're doing and be very self-aware.
Absolutely. Looking in sports, right? Any NFL, MLB, NBA player, they're going ahead and they're watching film. They're watching film on their plays, and they're watching film on the plays going forward. So you can't have that's top tier, high level athletes, no matter what avenue. So if you're nervous to either record yourself doing cold calling or script practice or teaching or whatever it is, I'm a big believer in teaching is the best way to learn.
You know what? I'm going to sum that up as, do you watch film on yourself? And most people don't.
And it's not an easy thing to do,
It's hard
because
to
you're
do,
watching
yeah.
yourself mess up. And that's also leaving the ego at the door, because you have to be vulnerable. Everyone has to be vulnerable. And again, it's just an accountability thing. Like, all right, am I going to be the best version of myself to be able to have success and be able to, uplift people and to be able to do business and help people?
Yeah. And then accept what it is that you do. Like, I have a very whiny voice, but it is what it is. You keep rolling.
That's it, right?
You focus on what you can control.
Exactly. Yes.
So, Joe, one thing I did want to say to you, and I've known you for several years, man, you are really a nice guy. You have a very nice way about you.
Thank you. I appreciate
very
that.
Very calm pace. And that's actually a little bit different from, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You were always a nice guy, but you're more excitable, just very calm pace, very focused. It's really noticeable.
Thank you so much. Nice guy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so true. And, do you attribute that to a lot of self-development?
I do. I think, when you're focused on what your goal is and your one thing, you could pretty much tie into that, and, really nothing else really matters too much other than really focusing on what that is to achieve that. Right. So I look at it as something's either helping you or hurting you. There's no in between.
Right.
No matter what you want to say, there's no in between. And you have to take accountability for that, whether it be being friends with somebody that's either hurting you or helping you, whether that be doing an activity that's either hurting or helping you, whether it be a friend, a family, a job, a hobby, it's either hurting you or helping you.
Yeah.
Period. There's no other in between. If your goal is to get up early in the morning and, work out, get to work early, do your chores, run your errands, whatever that is. Okay, well, in return, that means you have to go to bed early the night before.
Right.
And I'm very big on, communicating your goals to, your close sphere of people around you. And, it's very simple. You could take a step back and see, all right, is this person helping me achieve what I want? Be very vocal about your goals, what you want. is that person helping me or are they hurting me? If they're hurting you, have the conversation with them. All right, this is not helping me. I'm just letting you know going forward. Okay.
Right.
If it continues to happen, then maybe you have to start backing away from that type of person, whatever it is.
Yeah, again, kind of comes back to discipline, right? That's easy. You say it and everyone's going to hear it and be like, yeah, exactly. It's either helping or hurting me. But to then implement the mental discipline and be willing to have uncomfortable conversations for the purposes of growth, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's something that's a paradigm shift.
Absolutely. And a lot of people have a very hard time with uncomfortable conversations.
Right.
A lot of people have a very hard time with getting out of their comfort zone and have a hard time about confrontation. People don't like confrontation.
They don't.
They don't. And if you can go and have these conversations and word it the right way, you'll either build a stronger relationship with the person, and if they actually can see that and they're understanding, you'll have a stronger relationship with the person at the end of the day.
It's interesting because that term confrontation, it has a very negative connotation to it. I don't know, maybe it's because the definition, the Webster's dictionary is just that it's a negative thing, but it's not.
It's not.
Confrontation is a specific conversation you're having to try to align visions with people, right? To work out differences. It's actually a very proactive thing.
Absolutely. And you have to leave your ego at the door.
Yeah, totally.
That's a big thing. For me, I'm always learning based. There's something that I was on the phone with my brother last night and I was telling him, if he's a freshman playing football at FDU, and going into it, I said, you could be learning from everybody, whether it's, the least skilled person on the team or the most skilled person on the team.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you got to leave your ego at the door. You can't think that you're better than anybody. You have to go in there willing to learn, willing to, you respect everybody on every level. And, going in with an open mind. And a lot of people, they're so set on having, their strong opinions and whatever there is, and they kind of forget to listen to other people. And, you have to have an open mind. And, there's always three sides to the story. There's one side, the other side, and the truth.
Yeah.
So, you have to be willing to.
It's the only way to grow, man.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is. It's funny because I look at things like, well, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no in between. Right? Similar to what you're saying. I look at it very specifically that way. Well, am I moving forward or am I not? And if I think I start to know everything, well, now I'm dying.
Yeah. And I actually was talking to a buddy at the gym the other day, and, it was the conversation of, working out in business is so similar. It's ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Right? So if you go in and, you get into the gym and, say you're doing dumbbell presses of 50 pounds, right? And week 1, you're doing 50 pounds. Week 2, you're doing 50 pounds. By week 3, it's supposed to get easier.
Right.
Right? You're supposed to get stronger. It's supposed to get easier. If you're just going to keep doing 50 pounds for the next 6 months, are you really growing?
Right.
Or, you have to push yourself. After maybe week 2, you're going to do 55 pounds.
Yeah.
Do that
or
for
more
a little
reps,
bit.
whatever
it is. You want to grow,
right?
And you want to push in a direction that you're pushing yourself to get better in some fashion, right? So if it's prospecting for business, trying to get new business, maybe you make 5 calls, then it goes to 10, then to 15. You always want to try to be doing better than yesterday. And again, that's going to take more discipline. That's going to take more, consistency. I believe consistency over time equals results.
Yeah, that's great, Joe. Great vision on that. And talk to us a little bit about KW Commercial.
Absolutely, yeah. So I was grateful enough to get the opportunity to be the managing director there, which and that was where I started when I started my career with residential. So definitely love the company. It's amazing, amazing opportunity. And yeah, so we handle everything. I have a team of 4 people now, which is awesome. Shout out to my team.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, so we're definitely growing now. We're with KW. It's more of any type of leases, sales, anything that's on the market, because, commercial's done either on and off market other than residential, because a lot of the commercial deals which are done off market really aren't, really are the bigger deals. If something's on market for commercial, it's going to be a tough deal, but, we have the tools and systems in place to be able to tackle that. Because really there isn't, like we were talking about previously, there isn't a commercial
MLS,
designated
right.
MLS. You have CoStar, which is the main leader in the space, but that's very expensive. It's about $1,200 a month.
Right.
And it's a year commitment. So you're locking yourself in to a year commitment, spending that money. to be able to have access to all those deals. That's what a lot of people, I was going through the MLS actually yesterday, and I was looking at all the expired deals. So in the last rolling 12 months, in the last year, there was 800 expired commercial deals.
Okay.
And I went through them, and all the agents were mostly all residential agents. And
it's tough,
there
know,
was
it's not
no
the
there
area
wasn't-
of expertise.
There
Sure.
wasn't the correct marketing.
Yeah.
There wasn't even correct pictures. A lot of residential agents see a high price point, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, any $1 million type of price point, and their eyes light up and they're like, oh, I want a $50,000 commission.
Right.
Well, great. Well, you don't have the tools to be able to sell that correctly or even know how to market it. I went through it and I didn't even see any rent rolls. I didn't see any T12s, no expenses, no nothing for an investor to look at it and actually break down the deal and correctly do it. So that's what I'm trying to go around, helping out residential agents and give them expertise and be their shoulder to lean on. That, hey, you have a deal, you have a client, let me help you get this sold for them.
Sure. Now you mentioned on market and off market. If it's on CoStar, does that make it on market?
That makes it's on. Yeah, it's on market.
But it's just like if the bigger deals are off market deals, man, you really have to be tied into what's going on because you just have to know.
You have to know, yeah, and you have to get updates. And I can't tell you. I mean, I look every single. I would say about 2 weeks. I look and see what deals I see recently sold. Whether anything off market recently sold that came up on the public record, and from there I'll be able to determine exactly where the market's at. Hey, I know this just sold at this price point. Okay. Well, that's where we're at as far as price per door goes or price per square foot goes.
Right.
And most of the time, like I said, if it's, if I get a deal, I'm going to go to my sphere of people first,
Right.
and try to get the deal done. Cause those are my, my top clients. From there, I'll go to my second and third tier. And then, if any of the people I know that I can't pick up the phone and call that are interested in that deal, at that point, bang, all right, let's shoot for a listing. We'll list the property. And if it gets listed at that point, then we're casting the net as far as possible to try to, get these things sold.
Why wouldn't it move? Is it because it doesn't have the right cap rate or
it's overpriced.
Okay.
Again, most sellers really are just wanting more than what the property is actually worth.
Right.
I spoke to a guy yesterday. He tried selling a property for, $3.5 million. I spoke to him. I called him up. I said, hey, I might have somebody interested in this. Are you still interested in selling? And his words were to me, yeah, I want 4 or 5 for it. Well, you just told me. I said, I'm looking here. It didn't sell at 3.5. Why do you want 4 or 5?
Right.
He's like, oh, I think it's worth more than that. Okay.
Right.
Well, you had it listed for 6 months and it didn't sell for 3.5.
Right.
So I guess, but
Guess you can hold on to it.
Yeah.
All right. It's kind of similar to residential. Now, have you seen the appreciation in commercial to the same level we've seen in residential?
Yeah. So to me, I love multifamily. That's my favorite asset class.
Okay.
And that's because, listen, no matter what's happening in the economy, no matter what's happening with the interest rates, the mortgage rates, whatever is happening, someone always needs a place to stay as far as an apartment goes. And it's very clear cut to me. And, if you look at the numbers, that over the last 2 years, all apartment rates have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
The
rent index is at its highest level since 1986.
Yeah, and for those familiar in New Jersey, Jersey City is the largest increase in the country as far as rent increase.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's very interesting because, again, it's really a way to beat inflation is to have a multifamily.
Yeah.
And I like that specifically better than, owning single family homes, because with single family, right, you have 10, say the two, say you got an A property, which is a 10-unit building, an apartment under one roof. Then you have 10 single family homes. On the 10 single family homes, you have 10 roofs, 10 hot water heaters, 10 HVAC systems. You have everything individual. You have 10 individual tenants. Whereas the returns aren't the same.
Yeah.
If you have one apartment building, you're going to have, you need 5 of those people, 4 of those people to be making their rent payments to
break even. You have a higher threshold for vacancy rate and everything like that.
Yeah.
So a question for you on the multifamily. Go ahead.
And property management's a lot easier.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You could have a super in there and that's it. Give somebody a break on their rent and have them, run it, take care of the trash, do all that stuff. Whether it be single family homes, it's more of a pain in the butt to manage.
So when you look at the multifamily units, are you looking at anything more than 4 units for commercial? Because I know you can do residential 1 to 4 units, or can you put a 3 unit as a commercial?
Yeah,
Could you do
so
that?
so 1 to 4 is residential, right? As a residential agent, you can go and write the contract up from 1 to 4. Anything 5 and over, you need an attorney to write the contract on. That's just how it is. Now, me personally, the way I view that is, I've been involved in deals 4 and under, and it's hard. It's not the same type of valuation for loans, right? So it's basing anything 4 and under is in a residential category. So it's basing on actual
The rent roll doesn't
comps.
matter as much.
Yeah,
It's a whole different market.
It's more comps, and it's not going to align with when you're underwriting the deal. It's not going to be the true ARV, the after repair value, as to what if it was just based on numerics.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly a different space on it. You can't kind of squeeze a 3-family into a commercial loan. It's just by definition residential in the 1 to 4 units.
Yeah.
So what are the different levels of commercial real estate?
So you have, just casting the net pretty wide. You have, industrial warehouse space. Then you have multifamily.
Okay.
You have retail space, which is anything like, you can go in there and purchase goods.
Anything, storefront.
Yeah, any type of storefront is a retail space, which, we were talking previously, which is the most common triple net leases.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have you define that in a minute, but go ahead.
Absolutely. and then we have office space,
Yeah.
Which, we talked about warehouse being on the incline. Office space has been on the decline, obviously, since COVID.
Right.
I would say it's actually trending up a little bit from where it was, obviously, because everybody was working from home. But yeah, so then you have your office space, you have your development in your land.
Now, do you find, thanks for clarifying that. I know you could go on and on for probably 20 minutes about that. So from a risk return standpoint, so I look at multifamily, I'm going to say residential because people live there, right? But it's a 10 unit. Seems like you get good return with that and still kind of limited risk, right? Because to your point before, you can have a certain amount of vacancy rate and it's still profitable.
Absolutely.
When you start getting into storefront or retail, it seems like there'd be a higher risk on that, and that there may also be a higher return. Could you just talk about it? Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my interpretation.
Yeah. I would say, retail, strip centers, that kind of thing is a higher return than multifamily.
Right.
An office is higher return than both of those. But it's harder, and it's all into perspective, and in the same category as to what it is, what the actuals are.
Okay.
Now specifically, a retail triple net lease, I was underwriting a deal this morning where it was between 4.5 and a 5.5 cap throughout the whole portfolio.
Okay.
So now those are triple net leases, Walgreens, Duane Reade's, Rite Aid's, those kind of things. Nationwide, there's a portfolio of 10 of them. The owner wants about $42 million for it. And it's a very, very good deal. The idea of a triple net lease that a lot of my clients want that now, and that's because it's a safer investment, and it's essentially recession proof when you have a very qualified anchor tenant that's there. Usually Walgreens isn't pretty safe to say they're not going out of business compared to, say, a mom and pop convenience store.
Explain to everyone what triple net means.
Okay, so a triple net lease is a lease that the tenant pays everything, right? So they're paying the taxes, whatever the taxes are, it's portioned and added into their lease. The insurance is added into their lease. So the landlord, the owner of the property, is paying nothing. All the income that's coming in is simply just all net operating income.
And typically when you see those leases, what are the terms or the duration of those leases?
So usually they're longer leases, right? So you have, I underwrote a deal earlier this week. Chick-fil-A had a 40-year lease. A 40-year lease on the property.
We were chatting about that on Tuesday, right? 40 years.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So again, Chick-fil-A, as if anyone that's driven by a Chick-fil-A during dinner time knows, they'll probably be around in 40 years.
Listen, their chicken nuggets are really good.
You can't beat that.
You can't beat their chicken nuggets. They're fantastic.
Yeah, that Polynesian sauce is...
They're nice golden brown. I don't know what they're fantastic, though. So now I would think, too, the longer that you have that lease for, the less the monthly cost. But there's also probably a curve on it, right? It's not like you're locking into a 40-year lease paying the same dollar amount forever.
No. So the way it usually works, right? So say the first 5 years usually be the same on a long term like that, right?
Yeah.
But after that, or again, the thing with commercial, everything's negotiable.
Okay.
Everything's negotiable, whether it be from your commission, how you're getting paid it, if you're doing the deal, to writing the terms of the contract, options. That's a big thing, right? So you can do a 10-year lease with 4 or 5 year options, or 2 10-year options, whatever it may be, so that at that term you could say, okay, I'm interested in renewing the lease, going forward again, or taking a step back and seeing where you're at with your business, and then potentially changing locations.
You bring up a great point with that. So from a residential standpoint, I mean, there's rules, right? There's RESPA rules. There's certain, you got to kind of fit into the box. I mean, there's a lot of different programs, but there's still a box. With commercial, well, everything's negotiable, to your point on it. And it really kind of emphasizes why it's absolutely critical that you're working with a commercial real estate expert like yourself. If you're working with an attorney, they have to know commercial.
Very important.
Because if you haven't done it before, you don't even know, right? You don't know what's good. You don't know what's bad.
It's very important. A lot of people come to me and I try to listen. I'm very, like you said, I'm a very nice guy. I'm very genuine. I love helping people. That's honestly like a big part of my why. I love helping people out.
Yeah, it's
and
noticeable.
It's part of my downfall in a sense. When I started that, people would come to me with referrals in business and they would say, hey Joe, can you teach me how to do this? Can you help me with this deal? And I was doing it. But the amount of time that I was putting into helping these people, the return wasn't there.
Right.
And then it kind of I had to come to a realization with, all right, listen, it has to be a referral moving forward. I can't do, these 50-50 splits, because it's just too much time that's being, given with, the resources that I have, right? So I have probably $10,000 a month in expenses that I pay,
right?
With, employees, all the systems and programs and everything I use in the database. And in a way that, when people reach out to me about referrals, I try to say, listen, like I have a lot on the line here as far as, financial goes, and the tools and the systems I have to use to be able to, help and execute these deals. The reason why I can't do the 50-50 is because it's just not a smart business decision. I can't, put that effort into it when it's, not going to line up with what it is.
No, it makes sense. You have hard costs every month.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess it's probably, and also, what's the average size of a commercial deal that you say?
So, it ranges anywhere, if you're talking leases, that's a whole nother ball game, but you're ranging, say, from 500,000 up is what you're doing, but it's all relevant. It's all the same thing. I mean, it's, once you get past the idea of the price point of what it is, a deal's a deal. It doesn't matter. A big thing I always say to myself is I never step over dollars to pick up pennies.
Right.
I treat every deal the same. I try to help everybody out the same way I can, whether if it's $100,000, banquet hall that I'm selling, or if it's, a $10 million property I'm selling.
So when you look at the commercial real estate end of it, and then say there's a business that's operating in there that someone wanted to acquire as well, is that something that could be worked out through the commercial end?
Yeah, so I've sold a bunch of businesses before, and I'm selling a handful of them now. That's the biggest skew that I could honestly say, even more than residential, an emotional attachment to something that anyone's ever have, right? So I would say commercial property is less of an emotional attachment than a residential property, right? You make memories in a house. You raise your kids in a house, you grow up in a house, whatever it may be, right? So you have a strong emotional attachment. So if I come to you and I give you a market analysis and say your property's worth $400,000, oh no, I think it's worth $6,000,
right?
Because you have that emotional attachment to it. A commercial, if numbers make sense, the deal makes sense. Period.
Right.
I've sold deals that I've never even gone to or seen, or not even in the same state, just because of that alone. Now, when you go into a business, and I've grown a business before I got into real estate in the restaurant business, where I've spent 100 hours a week working, nights, weekends, on the floor scrubbing the tile. I understand. I get where people are coming from, so they can go and say, I think my business is worth $300,000 when the numbers suggest that it's only worth $100,000.
Right.
And having that conversation is not an easy conversation to have with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's, I kind of have to go and work with them and say, hey, listen, I understand where you're coming from. This is the actuals. Like I never, whenever I'm giving somebody, a breakdown of what something's worth, I put all the information that I have that I would make my judgment on, and I lay it out in front of them and I say, hey, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is what the market is. Let's talk and let's go over a plan as to what you think from seeing all this data what you think the property should be worth.
Yeah. You could see the emotional attachment there because you just spent, because you live in your house, but if you own your own business, you're spending 12, 15 hours a day with that business. It's less time than you spend with anything else in your
family,
life,
yeah.
your family, your house, everything like that. I certainly see that.
Yeah, you're giving everything to that, and then for it to go and just be, wiped away from COVID or wiped away for whatever reason, it sucks, man. It sucks, and and I love to be able to help people out as much as possible. And I'll, that's you want me to take a cut on my commission. That's one thing I'll always try to help people out with, because it's, you spend 10, 20, 30 years onto, busting your butt trying to build something. And then, for whatever reason, it's not working out. What do you do? What do you do? You have to still support your family. You still, you're, it's not like it's a lack of effort.
Right.
You're doing everything you can to have success. It's just, sometimes the resources aren't there. Sometimes
the market just doesn't support it, right? The economy is not supporting it.
And to be able to go and try to, tell somebody, hey, I know you think the property is worth 150 grand, but it's worth 70.
Right.
And then I have to go and tell people that are inquiring to me, what are you, a jerk trying to sell this for 150? No, you have to understand the situation as to,
the numbers are the numbers, right? No matter how much you care or how much empathy you have, the numbers are still the numbers.
And then I'm a punching bag to all the buyers that are coming in saying, this isn't worth this.
So question for you on the financials with it. So what's a quick down and dirty on that? What's it worth relative to the revenue?
So we'll go ahead and we'll pull up, the last 12 months of T12 at all the gross income. Now, a lot with restaurants, how much are they actually showing versus what's real? So there's ways that you can go around that. Again, with experience, I know that, you look at the inventory and, other types of ways to figure out exactly what it's truly doing to give an idea. But anybody in the business knows how it works.
Right.
But then from there, so you break that down, that's one thing. So your income is there. Then, you look at like the lease that you have with the landlord. If it's, a favorable lease to the tenant, whatever it may be, how much longer it is on there, anyone coming in is going to want to make sure that they're secure in the location so that going forward that, they have some room to operate, or maybe they'll renegotiate at least, whatever that is. So I think that's a very, important point. Next is also, okay, what else is included in the business? Is the staff included? Is the chef included? A big thing with restaurants is chefs. And what inventory is included, as far as, what's in the kitchen, what's, what tables, chairs, all that stuff.
Wow. That's, you got to go really deep. You got to go really deep and understand what the, how do you even put values on that, right? You got to know, that you have to know how to do it.
And then also, another level to it is, what's the current clientele? What's the business looking like? Are people buying the business with the, turnkey? If they open up tomorrow, they're going to be generating income, or are they going to have to go and start putting money into marketing and really trying to build it back up, to the point where, it's you have to put a numeric value on it.
Do they put a lot on what the gross revenue is? Because a restaurant's a great example. So say, just to keep the numbers simple, the gross revenue is $10,000 a month, right? And then we know that their hard expenses are $5,000 a month, right? So we know they're making $5,000 a month. How do you value that, right? After you've figured out all the assets and everything like that.
Yeah. So I would say just based on your net, it's about 3.5 times is what you kind of value the business at.
Okay.
Again, then you have to also include, the level of business and where it's going and what's included, and the reputation also. I think that's a big one as well.
So crazy, right? Yeah. Like, how do you put a value on that? And that's where you got to know the local market. as well.
You have to, and then look at things that sold previously, and and really where it is and what specifically is happening in that immediate area. I'm big with I'm no smarter than Dunkin' Donuts or any of those big big companies, so I follow the money. So if you see that there's new construction coming up with whatever the the tenant may be, or I'm going to follow that. I'm going to say, okay, if they're saying it's okay to put this here, I'm sure that
that's a great point. They know they're millions and millions of dollars of research goes into that. Where they're putting a McDonald's.
Exactly. Right? So so I follow the money, and I always, it's usually a great answer to questions whenever clients say, hey, do you think this is a good area? I say, listen, I'm no market specialist more than say a Walgreens. They have a whole real estate department that can specifically, check the exact traffic counts and,
Sure.
exactly the trend and the economics, which I do have access to that too. And whenever I have clients, I send out that whole market study report. But again, I'm going to trust them.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you're, everyone that's been listening to this, if we've gotten to this point, Joe's clearly an expert in this area. If someone had any questions for you, or people were interested in purchasing commercial real estate, what's the best way to reach out to you?
I'll give you my direct cell phone is 732-546-7501. You call me, that will go right to my cell phone. Or you could email me at Joseph, Joseph, period, F as in Frank, period, Spinella, my last name, Spinella @gmail.com.
Thank you, Joe, for spending the time with us today. Certainly appreciate it. Again, Greg Wareham, Joe Spinella with Commercial Real Estate. Thanks again, Joe, for spending the time, and thanks, everybody. Look forward to catching up with you next week. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Your Mortgage Process, hosted by Greg Wareham, produced by Greg Wareham and Nick Pavis at The Social Rift, and executively produced by The Social Rift. Thank you again for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.